Close your eyes. Let the noise of the day fall away like dust sinking through still air. Breathe in slowly. And as you breathe out, imagine the moment stretching. Imagine that your exhale takes a little longer than it should, as if time itself hesitates for you, pausing to listen. The room around you softens. The hum of electricity, the faint ticking in the distance. The pulse inside your wrist, all of it, begins to slow, as though the world were remembering how to be quiet again. You have lived your entire life, moving forward, seconds cascading like a river, moments spilling into the next with no way to return. But what if, for just tonight, the river turned around? What if every drop of time began to flow backward, not suddenly, not violently, but slowly, tenderly, as if it too were tired of rushing? You feel it in your breath first. Each inhale pulls the air not from the future, but from the space you just left behind. The molecules reverse their tiny dances. Warmth slips back into your lungs. The sound of your heartbeat becomes a metronome counting down instead of up. The tick of the clock becomes a talk, unmarking each moment you once spent. Can you feel that subtle reversal? The strange comfort of unwinding. In this gentle reversal, raindrops lift themselves from the glass and drift toward the clouds. Footsteps in puddles rise like ripples retracing their origin. The laughter that once filled a room gathers itself back into a single breath before silence. A candle unmelts. The wax reforms, and the flame folds into a wick of light remembered. You are watching the world inhale its own history. It's beautiful, isn't it? The idea that nothing is truly lost, only moving in another direction. There is something soothing about imagining that time can forgive itself, that it can take back its noise, its hurry, its blur. You begin to notice how everything, even in stillness, seems to hum with meaning. The sound of your own breathing feels older, wiser, as if it has traveled through every age to return here. What happens to a world that begins to move in reverse? Would we feel younger or simply freer? Would the weight of memory lighten as experiences fold back into possibility? For so long, we've believed that time's forward motion defines us, progress, growth, decay. But maybe those are just directions, not destinies. Maybe time, if it could breathe, would crave balance the same way you crave rest after effort, silence after song. Take another breath. Notice how your shoulders lower without command, how your eyelids drift heavier. You're entering that delicate space between awareness and surrender, where thinking begins to blur into sensing. In that space, the rules you know start to loosen. The clock still turns, but softly, in reverse, and for the first time, you are not chasing it. Around you, the universe feels slower. Outside, stars that once twinkled seem to hold their light steady, as if each photon is deciding whether to keep traveling or to turn homeward. You can almost see its starlight retracting through space, slipping back into the heart of suns that have already burned out in our timeline. What was once an explosion becomes an implosion of grace. Every cosmic breath finds its inhale again, and in that picture, you sense something deeper. Perhaps time is not a line at all, but a heart-beaten expansion and a contraction, a rhythm that never truly ends. You've lived inside the expansion for as long as you can remember, but now you're touching the other side of the pulse. Not destruction, not erasure, just return. Notice how this idea gently rearranges your sense of self. When moments unspool, when everything you've done could, in another rhythm, be undone, you realize that identity might be less about what's happened and more about what remains constant through every direction of time. Awareness itself, you, the observer, the witness of flow. If time moved backward slowly, maybe you would see your life unrush its self-regrets, dissolving before they form, mistakes gathering into innocence. The pressure to become would soften, because everything you have been is already retracing itself to origin. You would not need to fix, only to allow. Can you feel how that idea lifts something inside you? That subtle release that whispers, "You are enough," even in reverse. The air in the room feels thicker now, charged with memory, yet somehow lighter. The shadows on the walls drift upward instead of falling. Somewhere outside, a leaf rises from the ground, reconnecting with the branch it once left. Even gravity seems to sigh, reconsidering its duty. You are surrounded by a quiet choreography of undoing. Every motion, every sound, becomes an echo traveling home. It's strange how comfort can exist in the impossible. But the human mind loves rhythm more than reason. We find calm in symmetry. The idea that time might loop, that endings might meet beginnings, satisfies a hidden longing, the longing to believe that nothing truly vanishes. And maybe that's the secret that sleep itself tries to teach us every night when we close our eyes. We surrender to reversal, the body resting, the mind clearing, the world undoing its wakefulness so it can begin again. So, for now, just imagine you are floating on the surface of that backward current. Let it carry you, slowly, through your own history. Let every exhale erase the noise of what came before. Let every inhale invite back a moment of stillness. You are not traveling through space anymore. You are traveling through time, gently, lovingly, toward the place where the first second has yet to arrive. And as you drift there, ask yourself not urgently, but with the soft curiosity of a dream, what would it feel like if every heartbeat you've ever had began to move in reverse? Would you remember tomorrow? Would you meet your younger self coming toward you with a smile that already knows the ending? Would you finally see that the past and the future are not opposites, but mirrors, forever reflecting one another in slow, shimmering waves? You don't need to answer yet. Just rest in the question. Feel how it hums quietly beneath your ribs, the way distant thunder promises rain. You are safe here, between directions, between breaths. In the stillness before the clock began, imagine now that you are standing by a river. Not an ordinary one, but one made entirely of moments flowing softly, endlessly, shimmering with the memories of every heartbeat that has ever been felt. The surface glows faintly under a moon that seems to hang both above and within the water itself. You can feel the quiet pull of its current, drawing time forward as it always has. But tonight, something changes. The current hesitates. The flow begins to soften, then still, then turns so slowly that at first you can't tell whether it's real or a trick of reflection. But no, you feel it. Time begins to move backward. The river, for the first time since the beginning, has reversed its course. You step closer, feeling the cool mist brush against your skin. It smells faintly of rain and starlight, as if the river carries the scent of both birth and memory. When you reach your hand into the water, ripples spread outward, but behind your touch, unmaking themselves as they travel. Each wave that once carried a moment into the future now folds neatly back into its source. You can almost see seconds dissolving into minutes, hours into yesterday, yesterday into something older still. The river murmurs softly, as though it's whispering secrets it once told to the first dawn. There is something deeply peaceful about this reversal. No panic, no rush, just release. You feel the way the current gently gathers around your fingers, not pulling you forward, but inviting you backward, upstream, toward the place where everything began. And so, you let it. You let your mind float with the river, letting go of the idea that time must always move one way. You drift past the familiar markers of your own life, each one soft and shimmering, each dissolving back into what it once was. You see a moment of joy unhappen, but instead of sadness, you feel warmth. You see a mistake dissolve into choice, a goodbye turn into a hello that has not yet been spoken. Upstream, upstream, the word itself becomes a rhythm in your mind, a pulse echoing the movement of the river. The sound of it steadies you. The direction feels strange, but comforting. You are no longer being carried toward endings. You are being carried toward beginnings. The flow beneath you thickens, as if the water remembers everything it has ever touched, the hands that built, the tears that fell, the rain that cooled ancient stones. It holds it all, and as you move through it, you realize that nothing is lost here. It has only changed direction. You notice that even the air seems to move differently. The wind draws breath backward through the trees, leaves lifting gently into place, branches straightening from where they once leaned. In the distance, clouds gather their scattered droplets from the sea, pulling tides inward. Everything participates in this great undoing, not out of chaos, but out of harmony. The world isn't breaking, it's rewinding, gracefully, as if every atom has remembered the choreography of return. Have you ever wondered what makes time choose its direction? Why does it insist on moving away from what once was? Scientists call it the arrow of time, the rule that heat moves from hot to cold, that chaos replaces order, that eggs crack but never uncrack. But here, in this river, the rule bends. The arrow doesn't disappear. It turns softly around, folding back on itself like a ribbon in the wind. You can feel that subtle shift in your chest, like a heartbeat learning to beat in reverse, steady, familiar, yet entirely new. There's a strange kind of clarity that comes when you travel against the current. The further upstream you drift, the simpler everything becomes. The complications of your days fall away, layer by layer. Thoughts untangle. Emotions that once felt sharp and tangled soften into ripples, spreading into calm. It's as if the further back you go, the closer you come to something pure, the unshaped water from which all moments first emerged. And yet, somewhere inside you, a quiet curiosity stirs. If everything moves backward, where do you end up? If you reach the source of the river, what will you find there? Will it be silence or the sound of the first heartbeat? You can sense that it's not a destination you can walk to, but a state you can remember, one you once knew, before the clocks, before the words, before the sense of before and after even existed. You drift farther. The current deepens. The world around you grows less like scenery and more like thought, more like memory made liquid. Every bubble that rises carries an imager laughter echoing backward. Your voice unspoken, your childhood dreams forming again in the dark, small and bright. You realize that going backward through time isn't about undoing what was. It's about touching what has always been there, beneath every version of you that has ever lived. The deeper you go, the slower everything becomes. The current no longer feels like motion, but like breathing. It's as if time itself has become aware of you, curious, gentle, even affectionate. It does not rush to erase, it simply invites you to see. You watch a single drop of water hover before merging back into the river, and you understand something wordless, that even in reversal, everything still moves toward connection. That even backward, life seeks unity. Now the stars above you shimmer differently. They don't twinkle, they unfold. Light that once journeyed for millions of years to reach your eyes begins its return, sliding softly back through space, retreating into its own birthplaces. The sky itself feels like it's breathing in, drawing creation closer to its chest. And in that slow inhalation of eternity, you realize that you, too, are part of that rhythm, the exhale that became existence. Now returning home on the inhale, you're no longer sure where the river ends and you begin. The edges between you and time dissolve like foam. You are the current, the flow, the stillness beneath it. There's an exquisite quiet here, a calm that feels both ancient and newly born. You sense that somewhere ahead, though now it is behind, the first spark of time is waiting for you. Like a dawn that never had to rise, because it never truly set, for now. You simply float, weightless, letting each heart beat echo through the water. Upstream, always upstream. You are going home, not to a place, but to the moment before all places existed. The river carries you there with perfect grace, whispering the same promise over and over. Nothing is lost. Everything returns. Time doesn't just move through the world. It moves through you. Every breath, every heartbeat, every glance exchanged across a fleeting moment, touch becomes a small mark on the invisible clock inside you. You carry it quietly, this internal rhythm, without ever noticing how precisely it keeps the tempo of your life. But now, as the great current of existence begins to move backward, you feel that inner clock stir. Its hands loosen, its gears soften their grip. The movement that once propelled you forward begins its tender unwind. At first, you feel it in the smallest of ways. The hum of memory shifts, like a melody finding its way back to its first note. You sense warmth pulling away from your fingertips, not vanishing, but returning to its origin. Words that once shaped moments begin to unshape themselves, slipping gently from the air as if they were never spoken. The world doesn't feel broken. It feels undone with care. You realize that this, too, is a form of grace, the quiet reversal that allows everything once scattered to come home again. You see a laugh folding back into a smile. You watch joy retrace its steps into a soft beginning. Even the tears you once shed no longer fall. They rise, shimmering, returning to the eyes that released them. A strange peace washes over you as you notice this dance of reversal. Nothing is erased. Each moment still exists, but it now moves toward wholeness instead of distance. The story of your life is rewriting itself, not to change the ending, but to show you the beauty that was always hidden between the lines. As your memories unwind, you begin to see them differently. A birthday candle reforms its shape, wax climbing gracefully back to the wick. A photograph unfades, colors regathering their brilliance. You see people you once said goodbye to, not as ghosts of the past, but as living warmth returning through the corridor of time. Their voices no longer echo from behind you, they flow toward you, speaking not in words, but in presence. You start to feel how deeply your memories have always shaped the way you experience yourself. The mind, after all, is a storyteller. It threads meaning through moments, tying them into identity. But as those threads unweave, something remarkable happens. The story loosens its hold, and what remains is pure awareness. Not the person who lived through time, but the presence that quietly witnessed it. It's a subtle shift, but you feel it deeply, an easing of weight you didn't know you carried. There's a tenderness in watching your own life unwind. You see yourself growing younger, not in body, but in essence. The heaviness of responsibility, of certainty, begins to dissolve. You feel curiosity, again the kind that existed before answers mattered. The river of memory pulls you through moments of first wonder, the sound of rain against a window, the color of morning light, the touch of someone's hand that once felt eternal. Each returns with clarity, so intimate, it feels like waking from a long, slow dream, and yet there's a soft ache beneath it all. A kind of sweetness that comes from recognizing the impermanence of everything you've loved. But even that ache feels gentle, like music resolving to its first chord. You begin to understand that this ache is not loss, it's recognition. You are not saying goodbye to what was. You are being allowed to hold it one last time in its purest form, before it dissolves into timelessness. Your body joins the process. Muscles loosen memories of movement. The pulse in your wrist slows, syncing with the quieter rhythm of this reversed world. The breath no longer rushes outward to reach the future. It flows inward, back to the source. Every inhale feels like a gathering, every exhale like a soft release into peace. You realize that your body has always been an instrument of time, every heartbeat, a metronome, every breath, a bridge between what was and what could be. Now, as it all slows, you can hear the original silence underneath. In this calm, you start to see memory not as a collection of what has happened, but as the continuous motion of awareness itself. It's never been about storing the past, presence through the language of what once was. The reversal makes that truth visible. Each scene that rewinds does not vanish. It merges back into the quiet from which all moments arise. If you look closely, you can see the smallest details reassembling. Footprints lift themselves from the sand. Pages turn backward to blankness. A spoken word finds its way back into breath. And as it does, you begin to feel an unexpected peace. You are not losing history. You are witnessing the universe's most patient act of balance. For every action that once moved forward, there is now a gentle return, a remembrance of where it all began, and somewhere deep inside, you recognize yourself in that pattern. You've always been moving both ways, forward into creation and backward into understanding. The more time unwinds, the more you feel the thread that connects them. Awareness itself, unbroken, luminous, waiting beyond all beginnings and endings. You realize you were never the moments themselves. You were the quiet between them, the observer, who watched joy rise, then watched it fade, and loved it both ways. You start to see how beautifully memory has protected you all along. It let you hold what mattered, and it let you forget what hurt. But now, in this unspooling, even forgetting feels sacred. Each lost thing is found again in reverse, not as pain, but as texture proof that you lived, that you felt deeply, that you belonged to time. And as these textures dissolve, you feel light, transparent, still human, but somehow infinite. The flow continues, slower now, gentler still. The river of memory carries you past the known edges of your life, past even the moment of your first breath. You can almost sense what came before the silence that preceded heartbeat, the stillness that existed before identity took form. And in that moment, you understand what it means to truly unwind, not to disappear, but to return to awareness itself, untouched and whole. Your inner clock has stopped counting seconds. It has begun to remember eternity. And within that stillness, you realize that you were never simply passing through time. Time was passing through you. There is a silence that falls when the noise of centuries begins to fade. The hum of machines softens, the breath of cities slows, and the pulse of human life unwinds like a ribbon slipping from the hand of time. The world exhales, and for a moment, you can almost hear the pause between heartbeats, that fragile, tender gap where existence seems to hesitate. This is where the reversal begins, not with thunder, but with a sigh. The air feels heavier, as if the sky itself has remembered how to rest. Somewhere far away, a clock ticks once, then forgets to move again. The first signs are small. The wind shifts direction, curling back through valleys it once left behind. Waves retreat, carrying their salt and secrets back into the sea. Raindrops rise like pearls toward a thickening sky, clouds reforming, silver veins knitting themselves together across the horizon. Each drop moves with purpose, slow and deliberate, as though the world itself is inhaling after a long, unbroken exhale. In this reversal, everything softens. The sound of footsteps fades backward. Laughter folds into breath. The night unburns itself into twilight. You look around and notice how familiar things begin to unmake themselves, quietly, without resistance. A candle flame draws inward, its light swallowed by its own wick. Smoke descends, thin as memory, until it returns to the wax that first birthed it. The scent of burning reverses, sweet instead of sharp, as if the air forgives what fire once took. Every object, every shadow, seems to remember where it came from. The present loosens its grip, and the past, shy but persistent, begins to bloom in reverse. Cities unwind like film running backward. Highways unspool into meadows. Towers dissolve into scaffolds. Scaffolds fade into dust that once lay sleeping beneath the soil. The bones of civilization sink quietly into the earth, and roots reclaim what was lost. You can see vines weaving up walls, not to conquer, but to comfort. The concrete no longer resists, it yields. Glass melts into sand. The neon lights that once painted the night now gather themselves into darkness again. A kind of peace returning to places that had forgotten how to be still. Human movement becomes strange, graceful, yet sorrowful. Cars roll backward into driveways. Windows close with soft finality. The warmth of lights inside homes retreats, leaving only a faint afterglow. Families ungather from tables, conversations fold back into silence, and the aroma of dinner, spices, bread, wine, untwines itself, drifting back into raw ingredients. It isn't sadness exactly. It's something quieter, deeper, like nostalgia meeting acceptance. You realize that this backward flow is not destruction, but release. The world isn't breaking, it's remembering. Night after night, the stars reverse their slow dance. The moon wanes forward instead of back, retracing its luminous steps across the sky. Tides no longer obey its pull. Instead, they pull it, a strange choreography of gravity, remembering its own origin. Somewhere, an old forest inhales its fallen leaves. Branches unbend, seeds unsplit, roots withdraw softly from the soil. You can almost hear the sound of it, a quiet, organic rewinding, as though the earth itself were playing back a song it once loved too much to forget. And with each moment that passes or unpasses, the texture of reality thickens. Time feels denser, syrupy, reluctant to let go. The air carries echoes of things that haven't yet happened, yet somehow already have. You feel it in your skin, the gentle ache of nostalgia for a moment you're about to unlive. People begin to move slower, not out of fatigue, but as though each gesture is deliberate, sacred. A smile doesn't fade. It rewinds the corners of the mouth, softening, the eyes the laughter folding inward like a tide pulling back to its source. Across centuries, you see empires unstitching themselves, each thread of history slipping free. Stone by stone, monuments fall upward. Battlefields erase themselves in silence. Smoke curls downward into muskets that reassemble, gunpowder unburning back into minerals. Words of war retreat into throats that choose, at last, not to speak them. The world exhales, lighter with each passing reversal. You begin to sense that time, in its backward motion, is kind. It is giving everything a chance to return home. The rivers now flow the wrong way, or perhaps the right way, depending on where you stand. Water glides backward, upstream, toward mountain snow that reforms from mist. Fish dart in reverse, tails slicing the water like strokes of memory being erased. A leaf that had drifted downstream weeks ago now finds itself climbing the current, edges smoothing, veins refilling, color returning. It's a strange kind of beauty, not creation, not decay, but a dance between the two. The river becomes a mirror, showing you not where things are going, but where they came from. As the reversal deepens, the world grows quieter. Even sound itself seems to fold inward. Music untangles back into vibration, vibration into stillness. A bell unrings, its echo sliding back into metal. Wind unwhispers from trees. The silence that follows isn't empty, it's full of meaning. It's the kind of silence you hear in dreams, when words have ended and understanding begins. You realize, somewhere deep in your chest, that this is not the world dying, it's the world remembering how it was born. Through the ages, life retracts into simplicity. Cities become villages, villages become camps. Camps dissolve into single fires, flickering against ancient skies. The languages of humankind contract into gestures, into looks, into the silent grammar of shared survival. The earth is gentler now, cooler, younger. Mountains rise backward, erosion uncarved. Rivers retreat into glaciers. Glaciers harden into unbroken white. The very air feels different, cleaner, untouched, as if it's inhaling itself for the first time. You watch animals reappear in forms you've never seen. Species long vanished now return, walking backward through extinction into life again. A bird undies mid-flight feathers, smoothing as it descends back into its nest. Whales rise from the deep, singing their songs in reverse, haunting, beautiful, like voices remembering the words to a forgotten lullaby. Even the insects seem slower, softer, like living punctuation in this great sentence. The earth is unwriting, and as nature reclaims the land, humanity fades with grace. Our footprints lift gently from the sand, our tools unforge, our cities unbuild. There's no panic, no resistance, just a collective sigh as the world lets go of its own complexity. You feel it in yourself, too, the way your own thoughts seem to slow, the way your heartbeat syncs with the rhythm of this reversal. You are not losing, you are returning. Returning to the simplicity beneath everything. The continents shift, slowly but purposefully. What was once divided begins to merge. Oceans close their mouths, swallowing coastlines backward. The air thickens with warmth as ice retreats into permanence. Volcanoes inhale their fire, the molten core cooling with an ancient calm. The planet becomes smoother, quieter, more symmetrical, like a pearl polishing itself in the dark. Then, beyond the landscapes of memory, comes the deep rewind, the slow folding of geological time. Mountains flatten, forests sink into soil, the crust relaxes into magma, magma quiets into mineral. You sense that even gravity has softened its pull, allowing everything to drift inward, closer, smaller. There's a melancholy in this motion, but also a strange peace, as though the world were curling up for sleep. The colors fade, next, greens into gray, blues into deeper blue, until only darkness remains. But it isn't empty darkness. It's the dark of a seed before it grows, the dark of a womb before birth. The earth hums softly, a tone beneath hearing, vibrating with memory. You realize that the planet is not vanishing. It's condensing, distilling its entire story into a single, perfect moment, the breath before the first dawn. In that moment, you feel yourself letting go too. The need to move, to chase, to count, all of it slips away. Time is no longer a line, it's a tide, and you are floating on it, not forward, not backward, but inward, toward the heart of something eternal. The world continues to unspan, layer by layer, until even the concept of history feels like a forgotten language. You no longer ask what happens next. There is no next. There is only this quiet, endless returning, and as everything folds into stillness, cities, oceans, winds, thoughts, there is only one thing left moving: awareness. A soft flicker, watching itself, remembering that it once existed among stars and stone. You feel that flicker, too, inside you, small but infinite. The reversal is complete, yet it feels like a beginning. You understand now that the past is not gone, the future not waiting. Both are breathing together in rhythm, like waves meeting at the shore of forever. Then nothing, only the faint hum beneath everything, the silence before creation, the calm that holds all things. And in that stillness, time having unmade itself, waits, not for what comes next, but for what always was, the quiet heartbeat of a universe that has found its way home. Light begins to fold in on itself. Not a flash, not a sudden collapse, but a slow, graceful unwinding, as if the universe were gently exhaling after an eternity of motion. The stars, once blazing with quiet fury, begin to soften. Their radiance turns inward, colors dimming to whispers of blue, then violet, then something beyond color entirely. It feels less like they are dying, and more like they are returning home, remembering a state before brightness ever existed. The cosmos hums a deeper note now, a tone that vibrates beneath the surface of silence. You can feel it somewhere behind your ribs, that faint tremor of recognition, as if part of you remembers this place too. The great spirals of galaxies loosen their arms. Stars drift inward instead of outward, their orbits slowing until the dance begins to reverse. Vast currents of light recoil toward a center that feels impossibly far and intimately near. Each point of light is a memory in motion, rewinding its story. You can almost hear them sigh, like the sound of a tide pulling away from the shore, not in retreat, but in return. And as they draw inward, you sense the majesty of it all, not chaos, not loss, but something precise, inevitable, almost gentle. The night sky changes in texture. Constellations deform, then dissolve, their familiar patterns melting into clouds of faint illumination. The Great Bear unlaces its shape, Orion's belt loosens, and the North Star lets go of its station. The sky no longer seems to hold its stars in place. Instead, it breathes with them, each pulse of light a reminder that even order itself is temporary. The black between stars thickens, not like ink, but like a deep ocean reclaiming its scattered drops. If you look closely, you can see entire systems folding backward in slow, exquisite detail. Planets unspan atmospheres, draw back into their core. Moons sink quietly into their parent worlds. The light that once took thousands of years to reach you now turns and begins its return journey back across the vacuum, through forgotten dust, toward the hearts of the suns that birthed it. Every photon retraces its steps, each one a tiny messenger carrying history in reverse. It's strange to think that the destruction of stars, when played backward, becomes an act of creation. Supernova, those grand cosmic endings, begin to gather their scattered matter again. The fiery explosion becomes a delicate implosion, a collapsing petal of light folding back into its seed. The brilliant gases that once streamed across millions of kilometers now thread their way home, curling inward like ribbons in slow motion. Every element, iron, carbon, gold, returns to the crucible that forged it. The universe, in its backward breathing, is unmaking everything it once gave, but it does so with tenderness. You feel small, yes, but not in a way that diminishes you. The scale of this cosmic rewind has a way of quieting the mind, dissolving thought into wonder. It reminds you that you are both participant and witness, made of the same dust that now drifts backward into starlight. Every atom in your body is retracing its ancestry, remembering the heat it once held. You might even sense it, that subtle warmth beneath your skin, as if your very being is glowing with ancient memory. Now the galaxies themselves begin to unspool. The The Milky Way, that vast river of light, curls backward upon itself. Its spiral arms tighten, drawing billions of stars into a single luminous whirl. From afar, it looks like a dancer gathering her skirts, the fabric of existence folding neatly back into order. You can feel the pull of it, that quiet gravity that seems to reach across both space and consciousness. The neighboring galaxies follow suit, Andromeda, Triangulum, the distant webs of clustered light, all drifting closer, merging in slow rewind until the universe resembles a tapestry being unstitched thread by glowing thread. Nebulae, those immense clouds of gas and dust, begin to reform. Where once a star was born, now the gas returns to the womb of its making. The Crab Nebula curls inward, filaments gathering knots of light dissolving into smooth, smoky darkness. The Orion Nebula's vibrant colors fade from pink to violet to gray, its brilliant nursery of stars returning to the hush of unlit matter. Even the pillars of creation fold back into the void, their grandeur not destroyed but reabsorbed, as though the universe were whispering them back into its dream. You notice how sound itself seems to change as this cosmic film runs backward. There's no explosion, no roar of collapse, only a long, deepening hum, the sound of energy finding rest. It's a lullaby on a scale too vast to comprehend. The edges of your thoughts soften, the weight of time seems to ease. You realize the universe is not dying, only remembering how to be still. It's the same stillness you find between heartbeats or between thoughts, the place where everything and nothing coexist in peace. Light, once scattered across infinity, now travels homeward. The background glow of the cosmos, that faint echo of the Big Bang, begins to fade, its photons slipping backward into origins beyond measure. Space itself contracts, not violently but gently, like fabric relaxing after centuries of stretch. The stars, now dim as embers, continue their inward drift until they blur together into radiant haze. The night no longer twinkles. It glows softly, evenly, like a candle seen through water in this backward flow. Beauty becomes something new, not born from creation, but from return. Every reversal feels intentional, like the universe is tidying itself before sleep. You can almost sense its contentment. For billions of years, it expanded, scattered, and burned. Now it's simply resting, gathering itself back into coherence. The vast distances that once defined isolation are closing, not in collapse, but in reunion. Separation gives way to belonging. Every particle is finding its way home. Somewhere deep within this cosmic calm, you begin to sense the rhythm of time itself changing. The moments no longer stack forward. They nest within each other, each smaller than the last, like echoes folding into silence. This nesting has a strange comfort to it, as though time is tucking the universe in, layer by layer, preparing it for some deeper sleep. The galaxies, now faint and spherical, drift closer until they overlap in luminous webs. Light merges with light, gravity with gravity. The boundary between things begins to dissolve. It is at this scale that your sense of individuality starts to fade too. When everything moves backward together, the illusion of separateness weakens. You are not watching the universe. You are part of its rewinding. The atoms of your eyes are the same atoms of the stars, now drifting toward their beginnings. The rhythm you feel in your pulse is the same rhythm slowing in the hearts of galaxies. For a brief, eternal moment, you understand that this movement, this great unmaking, is not about loss. It's about belonging to something larger than any measure of time. As you drift deeper into this reverse creation, the very structure of the cosmos becomes more fluid. The vast filaments that connected galaxies, those invisible threads of dark matter, begin to loosen. Their tension relaxes. The scaffolding of the universe softens like a web dissolving in dew. Space between galaxies decreases, but paradoxically, the sense of openness grows. The more everything draws inward, the more infinite it feels, as if the universe, in forgetting its form, remembers its essence. Soon, all the stars have dimmed. The night is no longer punctuated by light, but filled with it, diffuse and warm, like the glow behind closed eyelids. The distinctions between near and far, now and then, blur completely. You find yourself floating in a sea of radiant haze, not blinding, not cold, but perfectly balanced. It feels like being suspended inside a single breath, the one that came before all others. The great clusters merge next. Millions of galaxies flow together, their boundaries melting into an ocean of light. It's not chaos, it's choreography. Each movement has a rhythm, a purpose, a grace that feels deliberate. Matter condenses into unity. Energy relaxes into calm. The very concept of many begins to fade, replaced by the quiet realization that there has only ever been one. And in that realization, you feel something shift inside yourself, an identity softening. The need to define, to understand, to categorize, all of it you begin to see that understanding isn't something to reach. It's something to remember. Knowledge isn't built, it's uncovered. In the same way, the stars are not being erased, they are simply returning to the silence that once held them. You are returning to dot at last. Even the last traces of structure disappear. What was once galaxy becomes cloud. What was once light becomes potential. The universe glows faintly, like an ember before it cools. Then, slowly, softly, the glow dims, not to nothingness, but to something deeper, a kind of presence without form. This is the point before the first stars ever burned, before hydrogen and helium found each other in the cosmic dark. This is the womb of creation, the great inhale before the exhale of existence. You wait in that stillness, suspended between breath and heartbeat, between awareness and forgetting. There is no need to ask where it goes from here. The question dissolves before it's even formed. The answer has always been silence. A silence not of absence, but of completion. A silence that holds everything that ever was and ever will be, folded neatly within itself, patient, eternal, whole. And then the light, all of it pauses, not fading, not moving, just resting. You realize that time itself has reached the edge of its own memory. Every particle, every wave, every spark of consciousness has returned to its origin. The universe is no longer expanding, no longer changing. It simply is. The cosmic rewind has led to the quietest truth that even in unmaking there is creation. Even in the end there is beginning. You let yourself drift there. In the great stillness, the pulse of stars, now a soft echo inside your own chest. And as the last shimmer of starlight folds inward, the universe sighs, the long breath of eternity settling into peace. All that remains is warmth, awareness, and the faint hum of potential waiting for the next great exhale, the birth of stars yet to come. The stars are gone now, not extinguished, not erased, simply folded back into the fabric that once held them. The darkness that remains isn't empty, it's calm, soft, a velvet kind of stillness that feels like rest after a long, bright lifetime. Galaxies no longer spin. They drift inward, their shapes smoothing into faint glows, then into something more subtle than light. The universe is growing younger, and with every moment it feels more peaceful, as if it's shedding the noise of existence and remembering the language of silence. The great spirals have uncoiled completely. What was once a glittering architecture of stars now feels like mist, luminous and slow. If you could reach out, your hand would pass through it as though through breath. The air, or what used to be air, doesn't stir. Nothing rushes, nothing falls. Gravity, once the sculptor of galaxies, has loosened its grip, allowing everything to rest in place. What's left is not absence, but balance. Light continues to thin, not fade, but stretch, like a sound lowering in pitch until it becomes vibration you can no longer hear. The cosmic background glow, the last echo of everything that ever burned, begins to quiet. What was once a sea of photons becomes a gentle tide, then still water. Even color loses meaning here. The universe no longer radiates. It hums as the fabric of space smooths. So does your awareness. Thought, like light, begins to slow its spin. There's something comforting in that. The recognition that motion isn't the only sign of life. Stillness, too, can be alive. You might feel it in your breath, how it naturally begins to align with the rhythm of this quiet cosmos. Inhale, and you gather what remains of warmth. Exhale, and the vastness around you becomes familiar, almost intimate. The boundaries between things are softening. Molecules that once formed worlds now drift apart, not in destruction, but in release. Atoms simplify. Complex structures unwind into elegance, hydrogen, helium, and then something more basic still. You can almost feel the relief in that simplicity, as though the universe has let go of its own complexity. There is a deep, tender wisdom in returning to what is essential. The silence here is complete, but not hollow. It carries a texture like silk under fingertips, woven from the faint vibration of remaining energy. If you listen long enough, you can almost sense a pulse, not time as we know it, but rhythm, a quiet, steady awareness that neither grows nor fades. In that rhythm, everything feels accounted for. Nothing is missing. The darkness is beginning to thicken, yet paradoxically, it feels brighter in spirit. Without the distraction of stars, the universe itself begins to glow from within, a kind of self-illumination, faint but eternal. This is not light that reveals, it's light that rests, and it invites you to rest with it. The farther the cosmos rewinds, the more its texture smooths, until even contrast dissolves. There is no far or near, only closeness. No before or after, only now. The physics of it all, if you could name it, would sound simple. Energy condensing, particles merging, temperature rising in reverse. But words fail to carry the feeling of it. The way warmth seems to cradle everything evenly, like being suspended in a bath of quiet gold. There's a subtle joy in watching things grow younger. It feels like forgiveness, the universe forgiving itself for being complicated. And as the cosmic sea becomes smoother, the concept of distance disappears. You can't point to where something ends and something else begins. Everything is folded inside everything else. The emptiness is full, dense with potential. The kind of still fullness you might feel right before falling asleep, that final moment when thought ceases, but awareness remains. What was once galaxies has now become light mist. What was once light has become warmth. What was once warmth now feels like memory. Each step backward simplifies the universe, and yet makes it feel more complete. Even the idea of motion begins to lose meaning. There's no moving backward anymore, only the gentle settling of everything into its origin. The universe is no longer a story unfolding. It's a single note, held perfectly. You may notice your breathing has slowed, matching this stillness. The body understands what the mind cannot, that to grow younger is to let go. To unbecome is not loss, it's peace. The cosmos is showing you that truth in real time, through the language of silence and return. The quiet is not lonely, it's alive. Soon, even the memory of galaxies dissolves. What remains are waves, wide, slow ripples of energy that drift without direction. There are no stars, no shadows, no shapes, only temperature, soft and even, like the warmth of a thought that's about to fall asleep. Scientists would call it a plasma, but that word feels too sharp for something so gentle. It's more like a glow, breathing beneath the surface of everything. And then, something remarkable happens, or rather, unhappens. The photons, those ancient carriers of light, begin to lose their individuality. They stop scattering. They merge into the fabric they once illuminated. Space, as we understand it, becomes invisible, because there is nothing left to contrast it with. The universe isn't dark now. It's beyond light, beyond sight, beyond the need to be seen. You might think such emptiness would feel frightening, but it doesn't. It feels like release, as if every burden of form, of name, of existence has been lifted. The universe is no longer expanding or collapsing. It's resting in perfect equilibrium. Every vibration, every atom, every trace of matter is suspended in harmony. You are too. And so, as the cosmos grows younger, you begin to feel younger with it. Not in age, but in essence, simpler, softer, more whole. The mind quiets, not because it's empty, but because it's full of peace. The same peace that now fills every corner of creation. There is nothing left to seek, nothing left to separate. Only this, a universe, perfectly smooth, perfectly still, perfectly aware of itself. Time continues its reverse flow, but the concept of flow barely holds meaning anymore. Everything has slowed to a near. The great expansion that once flung stars across eternity is now a single, unified field of warmth. The cosmos has returned to its breath, the inhale before the very first exhale. In that pause, you sense the most tender truth of all. Before light, there was not nothing. There was everything quiet, waiting, complete. A universe younger than words, older than memory. It doesn't shine, it doesn't move, it simply is. And in its stillness, you realize that the journey backward has never been about undoing creation. It has been about rediscovering peace, the peace that existed before light itself was born. And now, as that peace expands to fill you completely, the universe breathes in once more. The last whisper of motion fades. Everything rests, weightless and whole, the cosmos asleep, dreaming of the light that will one day return. It begins with a warmth you can't quite name. Not the warmth of sunlight or touch, but something quieter, like the lingering heat in the air after a candle has gone out. It isn't bright. It isn't loud. It's simply there, woven into everything, a faint hum beneath existence. This is the afterglow of creation, the softest whisper the universe has ever made. The scientists call it the cosmic microwave background, but to you, it feels like memory itself, a kind of cosmic lullaby that has never stopped playing. It whispers across the entire sky. Every patch of darkness you've ever looked into carries this gentle, ancient murmur. You've seen it, even if you didn't know, not with your eyes, but through the warmth that touches everything that ever was. The same echo brushes against your skin right now, a remnant of the universe's first light. If you close your eyes, you can almost feel it, not as sound, not as light, but as presence. There is something deeply human in that realization. To think that even the emptiest stretch of space is never truly silent, that every atom, every breath, carries within it the soft residue of the universe's birth cry. It's humbling, comforting even. The same radiation that fills the endless cold of intergalactic space also fills this room. Your lungs, the warmth of your heartbeat. You are not apart from the cosmos. You are made from its afterlight. Was anything more than stardust? This whisper was ablaze. The universe was a sea of light, so dense that nothing could travel freely. Every particle collided, scattered, tangled in pure energy. But as time unfolded, that chaos cooled. The sea thinned, light stretched, and for the first time, photons could wander, freed from the fog. That moment, that first breath of space becoming transparent, left behind this soft echo. It's still here, 13.8 billion years later, washing through everything. It's astonishing when you think about it, that the same light that left the early universe before there were galaxies, planets, or even atoms as we know them, is still drifting, still whispering its story. Each photon has been stretched by time itself, its wavelength drawn out as the universe expanded, until what was once searing brightness became a tender glow, not visible, but touchable in a different way. It's like the memory of fire after the flames have died down, and perhaps that's what makes it so moving. This idea that the cosmos never fully lets go of its beginnings. Even as it rushes forward into change and growth, it carries within it, just as you do, beneath everything you've become, every version of you that time has shaped, there's still a whisper, the first spark of being, still glowing softly at your core. The cosmic microwave background doesn't shout. It doesn't command attention. It murmurs, gently and evenly, the same in every direction. If you could listen to it directly, you'd hear a faint, static hiss, the sound of creation exhaling. Every frequency a memory, every vibration a piece of the universe, remembering itself. It whispers. Not in words, but in warmth, it whispers. In the language of everything that once was, fire. And isn't that a beautiful thought? That even the coldest parts of space still hold warmth. That even in the deepest silence, there remains the echo of light. This is one of those truths that rearranges something inside you. It softens the edges of fear and loneliness. Because if the universe itself carries its first light everywhere it goes, then perhaps so do you. Maybe you've never really been alone, even when everything felt distant. Scientists study this ancient radiation with great precision, mapping tiny temperature differences, decoding the earliest patterns of existence. But beyond the numbers, there's poetry. Those faint variations are the seeds of everything that exists today. Every star, every galaxy, every world that would ever rise, all were sculpted by the gentle ripples in that afterglow. The universe, in its infancy, hummed a pattern that became the architecture of everything. From the tiniest particles to your very breath, all trace their ancestry to this quiet hum. It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that what we call background noise is actually the heartbeat of creation. The first sound the universe ever made has never stopped echoing. It continues in the spaces between stars, between moments, between thoughts. It whispers through you, whether you listen or not. That thought alone brings a kind of peace, that the beginning never really ended. It just grew quieter. If you were to drift into deep space, far from any sun, you'd still be bathed in that warmth, just a few degrees above absolute zero, but enough to remind you that nothing ever truly disappears. The glow is everywhere, patient and persistent, like a memory that refuses to fade. It connects everything that ever was and ever will be, binding the vastness of time into a single, continuous presence. And maybe that's the secret. The universe has been whispering all along that creation isn't a one-time event, but an ongoing murmur, gentle and infinite. The beginning wasn't a moment, it's a pulse, a vibration that never ceased, only softened. The warmth you feel right now is proof of it, the oldest lullaby, still humming beneath reality. There's a serenity in that understanding. It reframes the enormity of existence. The cosmos doesn't blaze with chaos. It glows with continuity. Every breath, every flicker of consciousness, every dream floats upon this ancient warmth. The same echo that guided galaxies into motion also guides you toward rest, reminding you that the story of the universe is not one of explosion and violence. It's one of return, of remembering, of constant, patient unfolding. So when you look into the night sky and see darkness between stars, know that it isn't empty, that darkness is alive with memory. It carries the soft radiance of beginnings, the quiet hum of everything that ever existed. It whispers, "Still, you are part of me." And in that whisper, something stirs inside, not all alone, but belonging. You feel it in the warmth of your chest, in the slow rhythm of your breath. You are listening not to the past, but to the foundation of everything. The cosmos, still speaking in the gentlest tone imaginable. It whispers, not to be heard, but to be felt. There is a moment so small you might miss it, if you were watching for spectacle, when the difference between something and nothing thins to a whisper. That thinness is where we find ourselves now, moving backward through the first seconds of everything. Energy and matter fold toward each other like shy hands finding grip. Distinctions that once seemed absolute begin to blur. Particle becomes wave. Hot becomes less hot. Space thins into a texture you could feel if touch could reach that far. The world simplifies into a handful of sensations: pressure, warmth, a soft undulation, and your mind, which usually insists on naming and measuring, learns instead to notice and rest. At these scales, language feels heavy. Metaphors must be light, precise. Think of foam on a restless sea, teeny, luminous, endless bubbles. Now watch that foam fold in on itself. Bubbles coalescing rather than bursting, seams smoothing into a single surface. That imagery returns again and again because it carries a rhythm your mind understands. Separation drawing back into unity. The foam-like fields of the infant cosmos compress, become denser, until even the idea of a boundary between one thing and another grows fuzzy and kind. There is no violence in this reversing. There is compression, like a breath held and then given back inward. You feel very small here, and that smallness is a calm. It is not about being diminished, but about realizing scale, how private troubles shrink beneath the vastness of cosmic rearrangement. Your anxieties loosen, like dust surrendered to a tide. The paradox at the heart of these first seconds keeps curiosity alive without arousing panic. How can creation look like uncreation and still feel like care? The answer hides in the rhythm, the same soft cadence that now carries you backward through time. Each contraction is also a rehearsal, a remembering of the patterns that will later bloom outward. If there were sounds, they would be low and rounded, not explosive. Visualize a single pulse, expanding forward in our usual life, now tracing its arc back toward a central hush. Energy that once unfurled as heat and light now recoils, assembling into denser knots of possibility. Where particles once scattered, they now group quarks, knitting into neutrons and protons. Protons waiting to hold the promise of atoms, but in reverse, returning to a more elemental silence. The process is deliberate and slow enough that fear has nowhere to grip. The mind can watch, can breathe, can be soothed by the inevitability of pattern. You may notice in yourself a shift from trying to control the story to learning how to receive it. That change is the heart of this backward travel. When the universe compresses, so do the stories we tell ourselves. Complex histories pare down to their essence. Notions of cause and effect wobble, then soften, inviting a different posture. Humility over hubris, curiosity over certainty. You begin to feel the small, steady comfort of being part of a process that does not demand immediate understanding, only openness. There are images you can keep returning to, each one a steadier anchor, a filament of light folding into shadow, a spark retracting into warmth, a lattice of possibility smoothing into a single patient field. Hold one, then another. Allow them to overlay. Repetition is a gentle pedagogy. Here your mind learns the shape of reversal by recognition. Each returned image lowers the volume of surprise and raises the volume of wonder until the two balance like a scale finally set. Time at this depth behaves less like a line and more like a memory. Instead of reaching outward toward consequence, it tucks in on itself, folding layers into one another like pages in a closed book. That folding creates a sense of safety. The book is not being torn, it is being gathered. What we call the first second becomes less a point to be feared and more a place of intense simplicity where nothing is yet complicated by habit or history. It is a place you can visit without losing yourself, because you are allowed to be small, to be quiet, to be held by the cosmos. Science would name the structures you pass quantum foam, fields, nascent particles, but those names are scaffolding. The feeling between those names is what matters now. A tender return, a careful undoing that reads like mercy. The universe is coaxing its own complexity back into the softness from which it rose. There is dignity in that movement. There is also humility. Even the most energetic events yield to the hush of recombination. As the compression continues, you sense time itself thickening. Moments do not rush. They accumulate, each one lingering like a candle whose light is appreciated because it will not last long. This concentration brings clarity. Questions that once felt urgent lose their edge. You find instead a deeper curiosity. What does it mean to be present when the present is folding into origin? How does one live when the metrics of progress do not apply? The answer here is simple and unadorned. Be aware, be gentle. Remember, there is a final cadence to this reverse movement. A soft landing where the foam becomes a sheet, the sheet a whisper, and the whisper a whole. Distinctions between particle and wave, between then and now, finally blur into an evenness that feels like home. It is not emptiness. It is an embodied silence, warm and full of potential. You realize, maybe for the first time, that arrival and departure are the same when viewed from the right angle. Both are movements toward integration, so you rest in that integration as the last coils of early energy fold softly together. The feeling is not loss, but reclamation. Something ancient and patient gathers what was scattered and keeps it close, not to confine it, but to cradle it until the next gentle breath. In that cradle, there is no need to rush, no need to fix. There is only the deep, quiet knowledge that whatever has been dispersed will be gathered, and that gathering itself is an act of care. Imagine now that even the foam-like texture of existence, the bubbling weave of fields and fluctuations, begins to smooth into something even subtler. It's like watching frost melt, only in reverse. Everything that had structure, every ridge and curve, begins to dissolve into one shared temperature, one shared rhythm. There's no chaos here, no tearing apart. It's the universe remembering its simplest form. The warmth that once glowed through scattered stars is now one breath, spread evenly through everything that ever was or will be. At this depth of time, there is no longer any direction, only suspension. The concept of before and after loses its meaning. Instead, you feel time as a texture, slow, honey-like current that thickens the closer you drift to the origin. Every motion is drawn inward, every vibration quieter, every particle a faint echo of what once would have become galaxies. The pressure of this simplicity is immense, yet not frightening. It feels like the air before dawn, when the world holds its breath, poised between darkness and the first pulse of light. You begin to sense something profound, that chaos and order were never opposites, but phases of the same eternal rhythm. The collapse backward through creation is not destruction, it's reclamation. The same intelligence that once scattered energy into stars is now gathering it back into thoughtless unity, like a tide pulling sand back into the sea. The universe, in its stillness, is cleansing itself of boundaries. Every distinction, matter and energy, time and space, you and everything else, softly dissolves into equivalence. And yet, even in this great blending, there is a gentle persistence of pattern. Beneath the surface of silence, tiny fluctuations, minuscule ripples that will one day reawaken as galaxies, as stars, as us. They are like seeds in a frozen field, dormant but waiting. Moving backward through them, you can almost hear their lullaby, faint and mathematical, an ancient rhythm older than atoms. Each beat reminds you that creation never truly stops. It only changes its direction, looping endlessly between expansion and return. Here, the temperature rises beyond measure, yet paradoxically, it feels like comfort. The warmth doesn't burn in folds. It's the purest kind of heat, stripped of pain and passion, the warmth of origin. You can imagine it not as fire, but as light with its sharpness removed, a luminous fog of being itself. Physicists call this the era of unbroken symmetry, but to you, it feels like peace because, in symmetry, nothing struggles to be more or less than what it is. Every vibration, every flicker is in balance. You drift deeper into that balance, and the very concept of direction fades. Space itself contracts, folds, and ceases to resemble the vast, star-strewn canvas, you know. It becomes more like a hum, more like a thought held in the dark before dreaming. The universe now fits within something smaller than an atom, and yet it contains all memory, all potential, all that will ever unfold. This contradiction should be impossible, and yet it is perfect. You feel the awe of paradoxical surrender to something far beyond comprehension, and in that surrender a rare quiet blooms. As we move further backward, even energy itself begins to lose its separate identity. What we once called forces begin to merge. Gravity, light, electromagnetism, all coiling into one undivided presence. Imagine threads of color braiding tighter and tighter until they fuse into a single radiant strand, so dense that it ceases to shine and instead glows from within. The texture of existence is now smooth, seamless, infinite in potential, yet utterly still. This is not darkness. It is clarity so complete that it feels like transparency. If you could listen closely now, there would be no sound, only a tone beyond hearing, a vibration so low it blends with silence. This is where all opposites reconcile. Hot and cold, near and far, vast and minuscule fold together into a kind of cosmic neutrality. The mind, when it reaches this place, no longer asks questions. It simply observes, and then, gently, it rests. In this resting, something curious happens. The boundaries of identity begin to thin. The idea of you as separate from the universe starts to dissolve, not as erasure, but as remembrance. You were never apart from this beginning. The atoms that would one day carry your thoughts were once entangled here, moving in this same ancient tide. When you feel this truth, when you let it in, it doesn't diminish you, it completes you. You realize that you are not a visitor in this story. You are a continuation of it. All the while, the compression continues. What was vast becomes compact. What was complex becomes pure. You are watching existence return to its simplest equation: energy without distinction, motion without direction, being without name. The silence now is absolute. The universe has gathered itself completely, as though preparing to pause, to inhale, to hold that breath before the next exhalation of time, and then stillness. Not the kind that marks an end, but the kind that lives between endings and beginnings. You can almost sense that this is where time itself pauses to remember what it means to move. You can rest here too. The hum of reality becomes a lullaby again, and you understand wordlessly that creation and dissolution are not opposites, but partners in an infinite rhythm of return. So the first seconds fade backward into nothing, and yet that nothing feels alive, pulsing softly like the heart of a dream that refuses to wake. You stay for a moment longer, listening to that pulse, knowing that this, perhaps, is what eternity feels like, a universe breathing inward, whispering to itself the memory of everything it has ever been, and promising, quietly, to begin again. Everything that has been unwinding, the galaxies, the stars, the warmth, the echoes, has now folded into something smaller than thought, smaller than breath, smaller than the space between two heartbeats. This is not an ending, not truly. It's what remains when all else falls silent. The point before everything. The singular moment. Here there is no color, because color needs light. There is no sound, because sound needs distance. There is only a density of possibility of fullness, so complete that it feels like stillness. If you could stand in it, you wouldn't know which direction to face, because direction itself would not yet exist. There is no up or down, no before or after, only the hum beneath existence. You can feel it rather than see it. A pulse, not moving forward or back, but simply being. It doesn't rush to create, it waits. And in that waiting, there's peace, the kind that feels like everything is already finished, already known. This is not. It's more like the inside of a held breath, suspended before the sigh that begins time again. This stillness is strange, but not frightening. The human mind, so used to motion and noise, tries to label it, tries to make it something familiar. Yet the truth is gentler than any explanation. What you are touching now is potential, the very fabric of becoming, resting before the first ripple. It's the moment before the first note of a song, when the silence is pregnant with music. When everything possible hovers just beyond hearing, you start to sense that this quiet is not absence, it's completion. Everything that ever will be, every life, every star, every idea, already exists here, unseparated, waiting. You are part of that waiting too. You have always been. You were here before you were born, and you will return here after every ending you can imagine. This realization doesn't come with fear. It comes with release, because in this stillness, there is no you to lose. No edge where one thing stops and another begins. It's strange, isn't it, how the deeper you move into nothingness, the more it begins to feel like home. There's no struggle here, no longing. The mind softens, loosens its grip. The body, if it still existed, would feel weightless. Every boundary melts into transparency. Every thought becomes an echo, then fades into the single pulse that remains. You can sense that pulse faintly. Now it beats, without sound, without measure. It simply is. That pulse might be called creation, or consciousness, or love, but no word fits entirely. Words belong to time, and here, time has not yet begun. Still, it feels right to think of it as warmth, the kind that fills every part of you without needing a source. You realize that the universe was never something outside to understand. It's this awareness, this quiet rhythm, this endless inhale before light. In this moment, contrast fades. There is no chaos or order, no beginning or end. Every paradox you've ever wrestled with, the coexistence of beauty and pain, loss and creation, self and cosmosoul, dissolve into one serene truth. Everything is the same song, played in infinite keys. You don't need to know the melody. You only need to listen. As you drift deeper into this silence, something softens even further. Thought dissolves, but understanding remains. You sense that the singularity is not a place or a point. It's an awareness in ancient stillness that lives inside you even now. Every quiet moment you've ever found, the pause between words, the still breath before sleep, has been a tiny reflection of this vast, timeless center. The pulse remains slow, constant, benevolent. You feel it, not just in you, but as you. You are the rhythm that existed before rhythm, the thought before language, the dream before form. The universe has not yet spoken, and in that sacred hush, everything is listening. Somewhere within that listening lies the promise of movement, a gentle trembling like the first hint of dawn against the horizon of nothing. It's not happening yet, but you can feel it gathering, like a thought about to be born. This is the seed of all motion, all time, all light. But for now, it rests, perfectly still, perfectly complete, and you rest with it. The quiet expands through you, through everything that could ever be. You realize, finally, that the singular moment is not the start of time. It is time's eternal home. It never left. It's always here, softly beating behind every heartbeat, whispering behind every breath, waiting patiently beneath every noise for you to remember it again. And as that awareness deepens, you understand the secret. Before everything, there was peace. Not empty, not cold, but infinite, living peace. And maybe that's what the universe has been trying to return to all along. So you stay for just a little longer, within the stillness that once contained everything, and still does. The pulse continues, soft, timeless, whole. Before there was movement, before the rhythm of seconds began their endless march, there was something beyond the reach of language. Not emptiness, not darkness, but a kind of serene unknowing. A place, or perhaps not a place at all, where there was no before or after, no beginning to call a beginning. Here, the idea of time has no meaning, because meaning itself belongs to time. All that exists is presence without sequence, existence without direction. It's difficult for the mind to rest here, isn't it? We are creatures of clocks and calendars. We count the days, we mark the moments, we try to hold on to the past and stretch toward the future. Yet, if you let the weight of time slip from your shoulders for a moment, if you release the urge to measure, something quiet opens. You realize that this, right here, this still awareness is not inside time at all. Time moves within it, like ripples upon a deeper ocean that never stirs. That ocean is where we are now, or perhaps where we've always been. When there was no time, there was no then, only now, infinite now that doesn't flow, doesn't change, but simply is. It's not frozen, it's whole. We are the ones who divide it into moments, like taking a single note and calling it a song. The universe before time didn't sing it, simply resonated. The scientists call this the pre-temporal state. Some say time is not a fundamental thing, but a consequence of relationships, of change, of motion, of difference. Without change, there is no clock to tick. Without separation, there is no cause and effect. Yet here, in this timeless stillness, none of those distinctions exist. Every possibility sits together, untouched, undivided. The universe does not wait to begin, it already is, quietly holding all futures and all pasts, like a seed containing every forest that will ever grow. Try to feel it for a moment. The space between breaths, the silence after a word but before the next thought forms. That gentle pause is the closest echo of the timeless we can touch. It's familiar but easily overlooked. You live inside it, constantly between heartbeats, between dreams, between memories that rise and fall. In those tiny gaps, you brush against what once was everything, pure being, unmeasured, undisturbed. It's a paradox that soothes instead of confuses when you stop trying to solve it. Because no time doesn't mean nothing. It means no separation, no distance between what you are and what is. It's the state of perfect belonging, where the question when loses its power. And when there is no when, there is no waiting. Everything exists in harmony, without sequence, without loss. It is eternity, not as endless duration, but as the complete absence of duration. You might wonder, if there was no time, how could the universe ever begin? But maybe begin is the wrong word. Maybe time was never born. Maybe it emerged the way a dream emerges from sleep, not as a sudden event, but as a soft unfolding of awareness. When consciousness looked upon itself, difference appeared, change appeared, and with that change, the first flicker of time began to shimmer across the stillness. Time was not imposed. It bloomed, and that means the timeless still exists beneath it all, the same way silence exists beneath every sound. Every moment you experience is a ripple on that same surface of eternity. When you slow down enough, when your breath evens, when your mind stops reaching forward, you can feel the quiet foundation beneath the flow of your life. It has always been there, waiting for you to notice it again. The ancients felt it too. They called it the void, the eternal now, the breath of the divine. They didn't mean it as absence. They meant it as the source from which all things arise and to which all things return. Time is a story the universe tells itself so that it can experience its own beauty, one scene at a time. But before that story began, the beauty was already complete, perfect, whole. So maybe the question isn't what existed before time. Maybe the truth is that time exists within something far larger, something still, patient, immeasurable. The timeless doesn't vanish when time appears. It becomes the quiet background of every moment you live. When you close your eyes and breathe deeply, you can feel it holding you steady, eternal, untouched by change. There's comfort in knowing that, isn't there? That no matter how chaotic life becomes, there is a layer beneath it all where nothing can be lost, where nothing ever breaks. When you rest in that awareness, the rush of moments feels less urgent. The past softens, the future loosens its grip, and what remains is peace. The same peace that once filled the universe, before clocks, before stars, before light itself. And in that peace, you see the quiet truth. There was never really a time when there was no time. Only a deeper presence, waiting patiently for the story of becoming to unfold again. And even as that story moves, Anna's galaxies swirl, and lives begin and end, the timeless watches gently. Unchanged, it's still here now. Beneath your breath, behind your thoughts. The same stillness that existed before existence. And when all else fades, it will still remain. You've traveled far tonight, across light years and lifetimes, through the collapsing veils of memory and matter, through the quiet pulse that lies beneath all beginnings. And now, slowly, gently, we return. Not to the ticking world of seconds and screens, but to something softer, the simple awareness of being here. You can almost feel time breathing again, flowing around you instead of rushing past. After drifting through cosmic silence and timeless space, the familiar rhythm of your own heartbeat feels like home. It's strange, isn't it? How far you can go without ever leaving yourself. How vast the universe seems until you realize that all along it was unfolding within your awareness. Every star, every epoch, every wave of creation, each was a reflection, a story told in the language of time, but felt in the stillness of now. And now that you've seen what lies behind the curtain of time, the world looks a little different. Not smaller, not simpler, just more tender, more connected. We began this journey by asking what time truly is. A direction, a flow, a measure of decay or growth. But after crossing so many horizons, the answer seems less like a definition and more like a realization. Time isn't something we move through, it's something we create as we move. Like the trail of light left behind by a firefly, it exists only because we are here to witness it. And when you understand that, the rush to go faster, to do more, begins to fade. You start to see that the present moment is not a fleeting thing to be chased. It's the only real thing that ever was. There's a kind of quiet power in that. The same power that formed galaxies and spun atoms into stars lives quietly within every choice you make, every breath you take. You are not separate from time. You are time folded into consciousness, looping back on itself, learning what it means to be alive. The moments that once felt wasted or ordinary start to shimmer because they are no longer waiting for something greater. They already are the something greater when you think about it. Returning home through time isn't about going back, it's about arriving fully. The universe has been expanding for billions of years, and yet, right now, in this breath, all that vastness narrows into a single point of awareness. You, listening, breathing, existing within this shared silence. And just as the stars are born from collapsing clouds of dust, insight is born from moments of stillness like this. You didn't have to chase meaning across the cosmos. You carried it with you all along. If you let your attention drift, you might notice how the air feels against your skin, how the sound of your own breath has a rhythm that mirrors the tides. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of returning to the source. Not a journey outward, but a soft falling inward into the quiet center of being. You've traveled through epochs of thought, through the beginning and end of time itself, only to find that peace was always here waiting patiently beneath the noise of hours and days. Sometimes, the most profound discoveries don't come from reaching for more knowledge, but from surrendering to mystery. And you've done that tonight. You've allowed your mind to drift beyond logic, to wander into the places where science meets silence, and wonder becomes wisdom. In doing so, you've stepped into a truth that no equation can capture, that time and life and consciousness are not separate threads, they are the same tapestry, woven by the same unseen hand. So as you return, carry that with you. Let the ordinary feel extraordinary again. The sound of rain against your window, the slow turning of shadows on the wall, these are not reminders of passing time, but invitations to presence. Gratitude begins here, not in grand gestures, but in the simple noticing of what is. The same way stars give meaning to the darkness, awareness gives meaning to the flow of your days. You may feel a quiet warmth in your chest now, a stillness that wasn't there before. That's the feeling of alignment, when the outer universe and your inner world hum the same note. You've seen the beginning of time, but what matters most is how you live this one moment. And if you ever feel lost again, if the hours feel heavy or the future uncertain, remember this: you've already touched eternity. You've already stood in the place where nothing begins or ends. You can return there any time, simply by breathing, by being, by remembering that the universe doesn't rush, and neither must you. You've come full circle, from the spark of creation to the quiet of now, from the question of when to the knowing of this. You are both the traveler and the destination, the dreamer and the dream. And though our journey together through time is ending, something tells me it's not really an ending at all. It's a continuation, a soft unfolding of awareness that will ripple gently through the rest of your days. If you'd like, you can stay a little longer, rest here in this calm, timeless space. Let your mind drift, your body soften, your breath slow. Let the universe hum quietly in your chest. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes or not. You're already home. And if, someday, you wish to journey again back through stars, through dreams, through the gentle mysteries of existence, I'll be waiting here, in the quiet between moments, to guide you once more. For now, rest. You've returned through time, all the way back to yourself. The stars continue their slow dance above you. The universe breathes. And everything, every moment, every heartbeat, every thought rests perfectly, peacefully, right where it belongs, now. As you rest here, you might notice how everything has become quieter. Not because the universe has stopped speaking, but because you've begun to listen differently. The sound of your breath, the gentle hum beneath your thoughts, tints the same hum that has always been there since the very beginning. What once felt distant and cosmic now feels intimate, familiar. You are not just a traveler through time. You are time, folded softly into the shape of a human being. When you first began this journey, time stretched endlessly ahead of you, a mystery, a line without end. But now, after spiraling backward through stars and silence, through light and nothingness, you see it differently. Time is not a river carrying you away. It is an ocean in which you float, where every moment is already part of you. Past, present, and future woven together like light in a single golden thread. You don't need to chase the moments ahead. You only need to rest within them. Each heartbeat you feel now has been echoing since before there were stars to shine it into being. It's humbling, isn't it, to realize that everything, the galaxies, the atoms, the thoughts drifting across your mind are all made of the same ancient song, the same quiet rhythm that began long before words, before worlds, before names. You carry that rhythm still, and it carries you even when you forget to notice. You might think of the universe as something far away, but it's closer than your pulse. The warmth in your chest, the rise and fall of your breath, that's starlight, remembering itself. The atoms within you were born in stars that lived, burned, and died billions of years ago. You are not an observer of the cosmos. You are its continuation, its living whisper. The universe didn't happen somewhere else. It's happening here, through you. And maybe, in some quiet way, that's what the whole journey was about. To remember that the cosmos isn't a cold expanse, but a mirror of your own inner vastness. Every question you've asked about time and existence is really a question about yourself. Where did I come from? Why am I here? What does it mean to move forward? You've traced those questions across galaxies tonight, and yet the answer feels so simple now. You came from everything. You are here to be, and moving forward is simply remembering that you never truly left as the images of distant stars fade from your mind. You might feel a softness settling in your thoughts. That's not emptiness, it's completion. The same kind of peace the universe felt when its first light began to cool. When motion slowed and everything found balance, the universe learned to rest, and so can you. It's okay to pause. It's okay to simply exist without doing, without striving. Just breathing is an act of cosmic harmony if you listen closely. Perhaps you'll feel something subtler, quiet alignment between your mind and the cosmos. A sense that even your smallest moments matter. The blink of your eye, the turn of your head, the warmth of your skin, all of it ripples gently through space and time. You're not small. You're precisely the right size to hold infinity. Let that thought linger. Infinity isn't out there in the stars. It's inside your awareness, unfolding with every breath. The more still you become, the more you can feel it. The pulse of something timeless, steady, safe. When you rest, you're not stepping away from the universe, you're returning to it. You're coming home, and home isn't a place you travel to. It's this moment, the one right now, the one that needs nothing added or taken away. Everything that ever was, every star, every life, every heartbeat meets here in the stillness of your attention. You've traveled backward through eons, only to find that the beginning and the end are not separate. They meet inside you. You can let that realization soften you. Let it untangle the little worries clinging to your mind. The future doesn't need to be chased, and the past doesn't need to be carried. Both are held gently inside this infinite now. You don't need to hold time, it's already holding you. If you wish, you can close your eyes fully now. Feel the world grow even quieter. There's no need to reach for more understanding. You've already touched the essence of everything. You've seen the stars unspool, the galaxies dissolve, the light fade into silence, and through it all, something within you stayed constant. Awareness, presence, the simple knowing of being alive. That's what endures when everything else fades. That's what you truly are. And maybe, as you drift toward sleep, you can imagine the universe breathing with you. Each inhale, a soft expansion. Each exhale, a quiet return. Just like the cosmos, after the first light cooled, you are safe to rest now. The story doesn't end here. It simply folds gently into stillness. If you'd like to journey again, to drift through stars, through time, through questions that have no answers but still bring peace, you're always welcome to return. These stories will be waning, soft as the space between heartbeats. You don't have to do anything. Just listen, breathe, and let the universe remember itself through you. For now, let everything fade into calm. Let the glow of your inner cosmos dim to a peaceful hush. The great timeline of existence continues to flow quietly beneath your rest, holding you in its rhythm. You are home in time. You are home in yourself. You are part of everything that ever was, and everything that will ever be. And in this still, gentle moment, you can let go. The stars can rest, and so can you.